Hello, everybody. My name's James, and for the benefit of those listening on audio, you are listening to my regular Friday afternoon Ask James live stream, where I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. I suspect with game week 9 looming and a 2-week international break just passed, that there will be a lot of FPL topics to cover. Before I get into the questions in the community, firstly, a full coverage of all the team news that we're aware of so far. To timestamp this, it is 3 p.m. UK time on Friday. I'll go through all 20 clubs for you, what we know at this stage, which should be just about everything. The game week starts with Newcastle against Chelsea. Steve Bruce has said that Callum Wilson might make it, trained well yesterday. On Miguel Almiron, Steve Bruce described his agent as too Bob and amateur, but says there's no issues with the player. Matt Ritchie has trained, but Ryan Fraser hasn't, and Saturday will likely be too soon for John Joe Shelby. For Chelsea, Frank Lampard confirmed that Christian Pulisic is out and his recovery will be treated with caution. Kai Havertz has been training alone, so is unlikely to be available. Ben Chilwell should be okay, having been a substitute for England on Wednesday. Thiago Silva is unlikely to travel due to the early kickoff and obviously travelling back from playing for Brazil. Aston Villa and Brighton is 3 p.m. on Saturday. No new issues for Villa. Tom Heaton is nearing full fitness. Engels and Gilbert remain out. Courtney Horse is also expected to train. But it shouldn't be any changes to the Villa lineup. Would be incredibly unfortunate if Trezeguet was left out following his performance at Arsenal. There was no word on Bertrand Traore, but I would expect Trezeguet to retain his place. For Brighton, Connolly and March have trained and not had setbacks. Proper has a stomach illness. McAllister has COVID. A late decision will be made on Leandro Trossard, but the game is likely to come too soon for him. Tottenham play Manchester City in a 5:30 kickoff. Matt Doherty has COVID and will not be available. Serge Aurier will likely deputise at right back. Eric Lamela is likely out. He's in the final stages of his recovery. Harry Winks is a doubt and Stephen Bergwijn available, but none of those three were likely to start in any case. Jose Mourinho also said that he is certain that Raheem Sterling will play, having missed international duty with England. Pep Guardiola says on Sterling that he is trained for the first time today. He also says Sergio Aguero is fit. Nathan Ake is out with a hamstring strain picked up for Holland on international duty. And Fernandinho is also out. Guardiola, I quote, says he has a bit of gastro. Don't shit yourself, mate. It's only Tottenham. 8 p.m. Saturday night is Manchester United and West Brom. Harry Maguire bruised foot will be assessed, but should be okay. Victor Lindelof's back will also be checked, but Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said it's not great. Luke Shaw, Phil Jones and Jesse Lingard did not train. Suggests Alex Telles will play at left back. Marcus Rashford did train for the first time today. And on Mason Greenwood, Solskjaer said that he was not well for game week 8. And so I presume that he's in contention for tomorrow. For West Bromwich Albion, Ivanovic and Pereira are available after COVID. Robinson should be available after getting COVID as well. It's been long enough since his first, since he was diagnosed with having it, that he should be available. Slaven Bilic, however, said that others have tested positive. They were not named. Sam Field and Robson Kanu remain out. Sunday begins with Fulham against Everton. Scott Parker describes everyone in the Fulham squad as healthy. Mario Lemina is in contention to return. For Everton, Seamus Coleman suffered a hamstring reoccurrence again on international duty. But the good news is that Fabian Delph, Allen and, importantly, Richarlison are all fit. For Sheffield United, the latest news just in before I started the stream, John Fleck and Lee Smoosey are back in full training for the Blades. Rhian Brewster returned early from under-21 duty, but it was believed to just be precautionary. And John Egan suffered a head injury in the Ireland-England game, but that was 8 days ago. So if it was a concussion, he should therefore, following the 7-day protocol, should be available for the game on Sunday. For West Ham United, David Moyes confirmed that Antonio will train, but not sure if he'll be ready for Sunday. I would not be buying if you were thinking of doing that. My instinct is he would probably be a substitute. Yarmolenko has COVID. David Moyes also confirmed that Ogbonna should be okay. He's got a bit of a groin niggle. Mark Noble is also available to be in the squad. Leeds and Arsenal is 2 o'clock on Sunday, and good news from Marcelo Bielsa for Leeds confirms that Calvin Phillips and Rodrigo are in contention. Llorente has, however, suffered a setback. Shackleton and Hernandez are out. Hernandez shouldn't be long-term, could well be back for game week 10. For Arsenal, El Neni and Kolasinac are isolating with COVID. Thomas Partey with thigh injury is out, means a new look Arsenal midfield for sure. For Liverpool, Mohamed Salah. Listen, I'm not a doctor, guys. I don't know what it means for game week 10, but he has COVID. Klopp has confirmed that he's flying back today. He's not going to play against Leicester on Sunday. How long is he out? How long's a piece of string? I have no idea with any sort of clarity what's going to happen next and whether he will or won't be available for game week 10. My instinct would be he probably will be available. Joe Gomez has obviously had knee surgery. He's going to miss the majority of the season, obviously adding to Virgil van Dijk's long-term injury. Andrew Robertson started for Scotland on Wednesday, so he's fine. Reece Williams, Fabinho and Thiago may be available according to Jurgen Klopp, but obviously Alexander-Arnold is out, and he's also confirmed that Jordan Henderson will miss this week as well. For Leicester, Brendan Rodgers says that Timothy Castagne is in contention. Ricardo Pereira will play a reserve game next week as he nears fitness. Siyunchu and Ndidi remain out. Wesley Fofana is available. No concerns for him. On Monday, Burnley play Crystal Palace at 5:30. Charlie Taylor has an Achilles niggle but should be okay, according to Sean Dyche. Particular caution on Burnley and Palace assets because obviously Dyche and Roy Hodgson both had their press conferences on Thursday. That's a full 4 days before the game takes place on Monday. A lot can happen in between. Eric Peters is available to deputise if Taylor doesn't make it. Phil Barsley's also available, but Sean Dyche obviously doesn't like to change a back four that's performed well. They did keep a clean sheet at Brighton in game week 8, so I would expect Matt Lowton to retain his place. Robbie Brady and Goodmanson will be checked. Dale Stevens is unlikely to be fit. For Crystal Palace, Tyreek Mitchell, James Tompkins, and Joel Ward are all in contention for Monday's game. Eberechi's Eze's withdrawal from the under-21 duty was believed to be nothing more than precautionary, and he should be fine for Monday. For Wolves, Nuno Santo, as per usual, saying, we have some issues, but nothing more. He says the same thing in every fucking press conference, that guy. Connor Cody was in contact with someone who had COVID. It is unknown if he is or isn't available from what I've read so far today. To double check that, keep an eye on the local press news if you've got Connor Cody or Roman Saiz, I would suggest. For Southampton, good news. Ryan Bertrand and James Ward-Prowse have been training. They are fine and available for Monday. That is your full team news as of 3 p.m. UK time on Friday. If you haven't made your transfers as yet, as per usual, wait till you get the embargoed news from the written media this evening. Manchester Men, for anyone who's thinking of buying Bruno Fernandes, seem to always have details of who arrives at the team hotel before Manchester United play a home game. As it's an 8 p.m. kickoff, I don't know if they will stay at the hotel, but it's common that they normally do for a home game. So I'll be waiting for any update on that. Yes, I am planning to buy Bruno Fernandes. Right, let's get into the questions. See who's in. Sandesh says, hi, James. How are you doing? Oh, thanks for asking, mate. Very good. No grumbles at all. Everything is fine. Really excited for Tottenham tomorrow. I'm very apprehensive about it. Anyone who listened to Clash of the Correspondents yesterday knows that I think City will probably have too much. But I'm really, really looking forward to it. Can't wait for the game to arrive. Cyrus Barnard says, hi, James. Now Pep has signed a contract extension. Do you think Messi will definitely join City? Well, definitely no. I would not be at all surprised if something happens at Barcelona now that the guy that they wanted out, I forget the president's name, but they've got him out. It wouldn't surprise me if Messi stayed on and signed a new contract, actually. So, no, I don't think that's a certainty. I would be amazed if it happens in January, which I've heard some reports. If it's ever going to happen, it will be next summer. My instinct, even in the summer when it looked like it was going to happen, was always, I was very conscious that I didn't think it would happen. I still don't, is the honest answer. Stian Bodsal says, afternoon. Fire to get rid of Salah, or Blaze to get rid of Saint Maximin. And who is my replacement? 2.6 in the bank. Okay, well, I'll cover this for anybody who's asking about Salah. My opinion is sell, generally speaking. However, if you have a very good, strong bench, then I would, and you had no intention to captain him this game week anyway, you've got a captaincy that you like for this game week, I would bench him and then reassess. It will, however, really piss you off if he's also unavailable for game week 10. So I think what your bench is and what your planned captaincy for this week was is dependent in terms of whether you should keep or sell. Do not let anybody tell you that you have to sell or you have to keep. It's very dependent in terms of your squad structure and what's happening next. I mean, for those who know that they would definitely want him and were potentially intending to captain him against Brighton in game week 10, and you've got the cover on bench, I can completely understand why you would keep. My personal would be that if you go to the right Manchester City player, or if you haven't got Bruno Fernandes, that gives you options that are just as good, if not better, from a captaincy perspective in game week 10. And therefore, I would make the move, generally speaking. Alexander, that's to answer your question, Stian. Yes, I would deal with the Salah 5 first, but obviously, if you Bruno would be first choice to get. That's where I'm going. Then Sterling or KDB. If you need a Saint Maximin replacement, you got 2.6 million knocking in the bank. I don't know if you've got Jack Grealish in your team, mate, but if you haven't, that could well solve your problems. Alexander Barker says, "Hi James, are you tempted to wildcard this week?" No. Fixture swings and injuries are swaying me away from waiting for the doubles to pull the trigger. Not been a consideration for a moment, even though I myself had 4 or 5 red/orange yellow flags knocking about last week. It's cleared up quite a bit for me, actually to the extent that Charlie Taylor's possibly my biggest problem, but as I already said, looks like he's going to play. So I shouldn't be in too bad a position personally. If you're in really, really bad positions, you've got like 4 or 5 red flags, I can understand the want to pull the trigger. And of course, this was always, if Tottenham performed well, this was always going to be Tottenham, Man City, big swing, few others swinging in fixtures like Liverpool soon as well. The temptation was always going to be now or game week 10. I think game week 10 is better personally. So listen, if I go through this weekend and pick up 4 or 5 injuries, I'll be wildcarding next week. But otherwise, it's just not on the table for me at the moment. Sam Thomas says, "Hi James, is Bruno comfortably the best choice this weekend? I'm put off my some of United's abject performances this season, but I'm just overthinking a simple decision." So I heard, I quote tweeted someone who said earlier that if you weren't captaining a Manchester United attacker this week, you needed your head examined. Nobody needs their head examined. Manchester United's last 6 results are Southampton at home 2-2, West Ham at home 1-1, Palace at home lost 3-1, Tottenham at home lost 6-1, Chelsea at home drew 0-0, Arsenal at home lost 1-0. I mean, if we're going to go and dive into the data, we go, oh, Manchester United at home, not great. And specifically for Bruno, we've covered this before. He has yet to score a goal from open play in a home fixture for Manchester United. However, he could comfortably get a penalty, a free kick, and an assist and finish the game week without a goal in open play and still finish the game week as FPL's top scorer. Do I think he's comfortably the best choice? No. Do I think he is the best choice? Yes. I think there are some great alternatives this week. Calvert-Lewin at Fulham, Jack Grealish at home to Brighton. To be honest, Kevin De Bruyne at Tottenham, Harry Kane, any game, any time, Sterling if he's fit, Sadio Mane versus Leicester, Aubameyang even, madness it might sound, but on the counter-attack against Leeds. There are loads. Jamie Vardy at Liverpool as well. There are loads of good options this week. Do I think Bruno is the best? Yes, that's the decision that I've come to. Do I think it's comfortable? No. Matthew Halliday says, "Hi James, in which game week between now and 15 would you ideally card?" I don't really care, Matthew, as long as it's before then. As long as it's before game week 15, I don't really care. I mean, from a Sky perspective, as soon as possible, please, would be very, very handy. I'm not bothered. I wouldn't rule out even getting some sort of TV announcement today It's quite possible. I suggested in one of the pods earlier in the week that I think for the TV companies coming in towards December, for their advertising purposes, the fact there's been no Premier League football for the last 2 weeks, today would be a really, really good day to start announcing some stuff. The announcements have generally been dropping about 5 o'clock on a Friday, so I wouldn't rule out that we even get something today, possibly. Do I think we'll get as far as game week 18, 19 today? Probably not, but we might get something later today. Cyrus also says, Bruno captain just going with the crowd, or is this the week for differential captain pick? Kind of just covered, Cyrus. So I hope it summed it up quite well for you, so I won't repeat that. Ray Gurnis says, afternoon, mate. Hope you're good. Very well, thank you, mate. Hope you are too. Chris Bradley says, afternoon, James. His bonus to Grealish worth a hit. The other move, which I have already made, is Salah to Bruno captain. I'm leaning towards just sticking with that one transfer. Good luck this week. If that's, thank you, Chris. Good luck to you too. If that's the way you're leaning, I'm okay with that. What you probably have to be conscious of as well, Chris, if you do go opponents to Grealish, and in your mind you're thinking, oh, I might go back to Salah next week, that transfer could well be blocking you financially. So leaving the money open to go back to Salah, should he be available next week, doesn't sound like the worst move. That said, Jack Grealish right now is probably the best asset in the game because of his value. I think for most of us I've only been on since game week 8, and I've already got quite a bit of value out of him, and that's going to keep going. And for those who've been on longer, with the fixture run they've got coming up, you're not selling him before Boxing Day unless he picks up an injury. So he's potentially going to damage you every week over an amazing fixture run. Villa's hardest game in the next 7 is Wolves away. They have a brilliant run. Joe Finney-Batter says, thoughts on ignoring Man United altogether and getting in on Man City early, going for KDB and Sterling. Which one would you get this week? We'll get the other one next week. So I've obviously thought about this. The people who know me well will know I like to plan ahead and like to strategize. The idea of missing out on what is the best captaincy, in my opinion, for an upcoming game week is something that I've gone past before, and it's often damaged me. I also really like Bruno's fixture next week away to Southampton. Really like that. And I think it's then a case where I can look at what I want to do after Southampton. If he blanks this week, I would still look at Southampton and go, great fixture. Love that as a fixture for Bruno Fernandes. And most people know I really rate Southampton. I just think it's a good fixture for Bruno. If it's a choice of KDB, Sterling, one now, one next week, I would go KDB now. But I highly recommend that anybody who's debating that, this is yesterday's Clash to Correspondence with Ricky Saunders and FPL Pringle. We talk about KDB versus Sterling in detail. The general conclusion from that was that we all probably prefer Sterling for those brilliant home fixtures. But away to Tottenham tomorrow, KDB, I think he probably plays similar positionally to how he played against Liverpool. I actually have an inkling that Bernardo Silva will play in central midfield behind De Bruyne with Rodri in a 4-2-3-1. That's my inkling in terms of how they'll set up. But then, therefore, I expect De Bruyne to be at 10 again, less involvement, but higher up the pitch where he can go and do damage. So if it was buying one now, it would be KDB first. But if it's buying next week, and the position I'm now in, I might be going Sterling, which means I could be going without De Bruyne for quite a while. That's not a position I'm particularly comfortable with. Neil Thompson says, afternoon. On Wildcard, which do you think is the best front three? Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Watkins, Adams, or Vardy, Brewster, Bamford? Question. Really stuck to play 3-5-2 or 3-4-3. Yeah, get that. I'm undecided myself in terms of whether I want to lean that way and perhaps next week look at sort of Kane to Brewster and then Foden to Sterling or something like that, or if I can just maneuver it slightly down to Watkins and keep a front three. If you're going for a front three, the three I would go for is Watkins, definitely. Calvert-Lewin because of the fixture this week. And I would probably go Bamford. It's a case then of whether you want to leave that money for Vardy for next week, personally. That would be where I'd at. I think I would go Calvert-Lewin, Watkins, Bamford. I wouldn't be surprised if I ended up going Watkins, Bamford, Adams, actually, and then just going, bam, I'll have Fernandes, De Bruyne, Sterling. I think that's probably what I'd end up doing. It just depends how the money would work. Cyrus said, who's better playing football, Suj or James? Well, Cyrus, that is the easiest question I'll get asked on the stream today, mate, because it's 100% me. Did anybody see the Fantasy Kings video that he did with all the content creators doing kick-ups back in the summer? Yeah, do you see Suj doing Morris dancing kick-ups? Listen, it's definitely me. We will eventually soon have a penalty shootout. And we've got a potential goalkeeper lined up, another content creator. We just need to get over this COVID shit. We'll film it. We'll make it look nice and jazzy. We'll put it on YouTube, and you'll see the way Suj kicks a football. Listen, I'm not saying he can't beat me in a penalty shootout, but you'll see from the way he kicks a football who's the better player. FTLOL podcast. That some price fall has ruined my plans for double City midfield for game week 10. Tempted to now do neither and getting Grealish and Vardy instead. Am I crazy? Nothing is crazy, mate. If anyone wants to buy a Jamie Vardy this week, I have no issues with that. I've said previously on podcasts that Jamie Vardy scored more goals against Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool than any other player in any league. It's comfortably Jamie Vardy. So can Vardy go off against Liverpool? Yeah, look, he's got a good record against them. I don't hate that if someone wants to make that move and you're kind of thinking, well, they've got Fulham at home in game week 10. I want to captain him. It's nothing. I really detest the, am I mad? Am I crazy? No. It's very rare I'm going to say, you're mad. Sometimes I will very strongly say, I wouldn't. This is not one of them cases. I'm okay with that. Swerving City could pay. I don't think it will personally, but it could pay. Clean sheet wipeouts this afternoon, mate. Is Werne a viable captaincy option this weekend? I have him, but concerned about his position and performance being similar to the Sheffield United game with no Pulisic or Havertz again. Yeah, I'd be really put off by that personally. The fact that Havertz is out. I think you're probably looking at Ziyech right, Werne left, probably Abraham playing again. I don't think that Lampard dislikes the idea of Abraham playing in fixtures like this, where they're obviously going to dominate territorially and with two fullbacks like Chilwell and James, who will never play high, in my opinion. Yes, I think they'll both start tomorrow. Then I think he likes the idea of having Abraham in the middle of that, particularly as Newcastle. Newcastle will probably play a flat five defensively. I think they might actually go even tighter tomorrow, Newcastle, and go 5-4-1. They have played 5-3-2 a little bit recently. But I think the makeup of what they've got, they might actually lean back to 5-4-1 tomorrow. So I think Abraham plays. I think Werne plays left. He's obviously allowed to float off that position, but picking up spatial areas against Newcastle is very difficult, actually, particularly in games at St James's Park. You need the early goal. If you get the early goal, it can really open up and suddenly Chelsea can go and win 3 or 4. If it stays tight for a long time, it becomes very, very frustrating. So is Werne an option this week? Yes. And so Ziyech, by the way, if you fancy it, it wouldn't be for me personally. Gary Reza says, hi, James. On Clash of Correspondence, Ricky was pretty scathing of Frank Lampard. Just wondered your opinion on him. Lampard, not Ricky. I mean, Ricky's a dickhead, but he's a good lad, Ricky. We love him. To be honest, my conversation I've had with Ted at Rotation FPO, our Chelsea correspondent, really interesting this year in terms of, I don't know what people want from him. And I do think there's an undercurrent of, because he's English, it's easy to jump on him. If his name was Frank Lampard or something, would people be so critical? Would they just be, okay, I'm trying to find out what he's doing? He actually spoke on that podcast yesterday about Chelsea being the team that can probably transition best in the league at the moment between a back four and a back three. So I think to say he's got nothing tactically, I was a bit harsh with Ricky. I did kind of say, well, Ricky, stop picking on the English guy. He's got to get a chance, in my opinion. But I know there are a lot of Chelsea fans who remain frustrated, a little bit like United fans and Solskjaer don't think they can achieve what they want to with him in charge. But what did Chelsea fans expect at this stage? They weren't allowed to buy anyone last summer, develop loads of kids. You now got people like Mason Mount who are kind of established, not just the Chelsea team, but the England team. So I think he's doing okay, actually, Frank Lampard. I don't think his job's under any threat. I think that tactically, we haven't as yet seen him truly outmaneuver someone, but do we have to? Is that what we need? Do we need to see him outmaneuver Guardiola at the Etihad or something like that? He outmaneuvered Guardiola when they played each other in the restart period. Chelsea played some brilliant counter-attacking football that night and really deserved to win. I thought it was a little harsh. Ray Guna says, with a plan to hold the wildcard until 15-16, how many hits is the most you'd consider taking without wildcarding? Love my non-wildcard plan, but Werne being out might need a -8 with other issues and priorities too. Okay, so let me just cover that to clarify, because if you put something like that in the chat, Ray, it's really dangerous. So Timo Werner, I understand, didn't train yesterday. Doesn't mean he won't train today. Doesn't mean he won't travel to Newcastle. What's made people a little bit nervous on Werner is the fact that Rudiger, who also went away on international duty with Germany, did train yesterday. Now, Frank Lampard hasn't said anything. Let me tell you now, Chelsea will travel tonight to Newcastle. It's a 12:30 kickoff. They may even already be traveling. If Timo Werner doesn't get on an aeroplane, we will probably know about it. Some journalist, someone at The Athletic or Telegraph, a clued-in journalist, is probably going to get the news that Werner hasn't travelled to Newcastle. So sit tight. Stop spreading rumours we don't know is true. There was a suggestion that he literally could have just been given an extra day off because he's played a lot of football. Remember, Lampard tried to leave him out at Burnley to give him a rest, then didn't afterwards. So it could just be he's gone, look, have a day off, mate. It's not unthinkable. Stian says, following up, picked up on your pod this year. Fucking brilliant. Cheers, mate. Question, sell Kane for Dominic Calvert-Lewin to upgrade midfield. Maximan to Sterling. Yeah, I don't hate that as a move. I mean, St. Maximin probably wants Binning. Well, that said, if you go beyond this week with him, Newcastle have 5 really good fixtures: Palace, Villa, West Brom, Leeds, Fulham. And you might get tempted to want to hold. I bet he comes up in conversation quite a bit the next couple of weeks, St. Maximin or Callum Wilson. I'm sure they will. Some bright spark this time next week's going to go, oh, Newcastle got a great run of 5 fixtures, and you might be regretting it. If Calvert-Lewin's going to be your captain this week, I'd say definitely. And if that then opens up Sterling for your captaincy next week, then definitely. NUFC Ahmed says, hope you're good, James. We know your opinion is Spurs won't win the league. No shit. Who are 2 semi-realistic signings they could make in summer 21 to become genuine title contenders? My goodness. I don't know where Tottenham are at financially because we spent more than we thought we would this summer gone. I guess if Bale does well this season, the priority will be to make sure that he gets signed for next season, and it's obviously going to come on a big contract. Then you potentially need to up a lot of the people's wages within the club. That might become more of a priority than actually signing players. 2 players that would make Tottenham genuine title contenders. You can get Franco Baresi in a time machine from 30 years ago. That would be a good start. And bring Fabio Cannavaro with him. That would make me believe. Centre half and central midfield is still way too big of a problem. And I don't actually think that 2 players will necessarily solve that. Right back is still an issue. It's better than it was because we've got 2 clowns now rather than 1. Wish you a speedy recovery, Matt Doherty, by the way. So there's way too many holes. The backup goalkeeper for us would be disastrous. If Hugo got COVID, get down the bookies and back whoever we're playing the next game. Hart and Gazaniga are not good enough. If you lose Kane, Son, it becomes the same problem that it was in the winter period. I think Mourinho's managing the injuries in the squad really well at the moment in terms of rotation for Europe, etc. He seems to be getting the balance just about right at the moment. He's doing well, actually, Jose. But way too far off. And I think, to be honest, Manchester City and Liverpool will both come back stronger next year. Chelsea will develop for a year. Arsenal could be much better for a year's coaching under Arteta. Manchester United might have a different manager. And who knows, Newcastle United might even have a takeover. So I just don't see it. I'm just too far for Tottenham at the moment. Tottenham have probably got a better chance this year than next year, because of what's happened with Van Dijk. City in a little bit of transition where something feels not right. Chelsea is still transitioning. United are off. Arsenal were in a massive transition and have creativity problems. Actually, there's nothing right now that could make me believe we had a better chance next year than this year. Actually, I don't see it. In terms of players to target, short-term options within the Premier League, I would like a left-footed centre-half. I think Tyrone Mings would be gettable if we got in the Champions League. I realize he's not world-class, but I think it's probably a realistic target. We've obviously been heavily linked with Milan Skriniar, the Slovakian centre-half of Inter Milan. and he is a unit, by the way. I like Romeo at Southampton because I think we need, and Mourinho teams need, a better outright sitting midfielder, which might actually allow Ndombele and Lo Celso to play together ahead of him. But then you lose what Højbjerg is very good at, the interceptions, the pressing, the going and winning the ball. Romeo would be short-term. He's 30. He's out of contract next year. But I think those are the type of players that I want. I want a left-footed centre-half who is a good all-rounder. He's fairly quick. He's good in the air. His passing's okay. I don't think your passing in a Jose Mourinho back four needs to be brilliant, by the way. And I want an out-and-out proper protector. That's what I want in terms of targets. I don't know if there are any about that are gettable for Tottenham at the moment, but I'm sure in 6 months' time we might hopefully be hearing some names. Colin Con says, evening, James. Really enjoyed the homophobia and COTC pods. Thank you. Who would you bench? Foden, Brewster, Webster, or Dallas? Probably Webster from them. I'm not convinced that Brewster starts for Sheffield United, personally. I think it's touch and go. He started the last few. Just have an inkling that McBurney might come in for this fixture, actually. Foden, yeah, you swing with it, mate. I have a difficult situation. I haven't decided truly yet on if I'm going to play Foden or Souček. I want to play Foden. I think naturally, if you've got him, you've got to go with it. And I think he starts tomorrow. It's the Souček and the amount of aerial chances Sheffield United can see him from crosses is making me really tempted about Souček. And having analysed that, if Foden then doesn't play and Souček scores at Sheffield United, I'll be gutted. But then if I leave Foden on the bench, he scored against my team, I'm also obviously going to be very gutted. I'll be more gutted about him scoring than the fact he's on my FPL bench, by the way, obviously. I would leave Webster out from what you've got. I'd hard pressed to see a Brighton clean sheet at Villa. I wouldn't anticipate too many returns from any of them. I would play Dallas. I would play Foden, and I would probably play Brewster over Webster personally. James Horan says, hey, James, relatively new listener. Oh, can't shoot down. But you've quickly become my favourite podcast. Thank you very much, James. Non-FPL question. Which of Spurs' recent signings has disappointed you the most? Soldado, Chadley, someone else? In an odd way, Ndombele, because I thought he was going to rip it up for us. From what I'd seen of him for France and Lyon, I just thought it was absolutely the player that we needed to replace Moussa Dembele. Soldado was a really difficult one because, as I've discussed this before, he came over and his missus had a miscarriage and he was obviously adapting to learn new language and it felt quite lonely for him. It was tough, right? We don't consider these things off the football pitch stuff, and his confidence just drained out of him. Nacer Chadli was never anybody I had massive high hopes for. He was part of the so-called Magnificent Seven, but was probably the most underwhelming of those signings. There wasn't any great expectation on him. Always flattered to deceive, other than one brilliant performance on New Year's Day against Chelsea, the game many of you will remember when Harry Kane scored a couple in that 5-3 game when he was like 5 million in FPL or something. But Chadley was unbelievable that night. He was absolutely brilliant, but it just didn't happen often enough. So I think from them, Soldado, was a disappointment, but there was a lot of stuff that was tough to deal with. Frank FF Stuff made my first live stream. Usually watch and catch up. Looking forward to it. Thanks, Frank. Frank, is that you? Does the brilliant data stuff, FF Stuff on Twitter? If it is, I recommend all the guys give you a follow. Tom Campbell's in, my friend Utley TC. He says, hi, James. Regarding the COTC pods, do you prepare the running order for them and the links between sections, or do you wing it? It always sounds so slick. Thanks, pal. Cheers, mate. I saw you say that on Twitter yesterday. I really appreciate it. So, generally, Tom, it's not what anybody probably wants to hear, but I really do wing it. That yesterday, Tottenham Man City, I don't know what I need to do. The thing is, when we do Clash of the Correspondents, we're talking to fans. So I don't really want to be there and go, oh, yeah, I've researched De Bruyne versus Sterling, etc., etc. And Johnny Pringle did a bit of that analysis himself anyway. Well, not that I ever asked the guys to bring anything. I always just say, look, come, we talk about your football team. That's it. That's all I want it to be. And if it drifts into FPL conversation, great. The idea, like most of our podcasts, is we'll have a conversation, we'll have a chat, come to your own conclusions. So I never draw out, Tom, the idea of saying, or I never speak to the guys first and say, we're going to talk about this for 5 minutes, this for 5 minutes, that for 10 minutes, or we're going to do this. I literally just go, you guys ready? And we hit record. And the guys are fantastic in terms of all of them, in terms of the way they respond and just let themselves be open in terms of how they feel about their clubs and the way it links into FPL management and the likes. So no, there's never a script. Sometimes if we have two of the weaker teams on, where I think all this is going to be difficult from an FPL perspective, I might dive into a little bit of data just as a refresher for myself. But generally speaking, Tom, there is no plan. The only thing that always happens on those pods, Tom, unless someone says something stupid in the intro, I always start with a home team. That's it. And then it just goes however it wants to go. Ayub says, is captaining Jack a sensible move? Yeah, I don't mind it. It's going to be a number, I think, going to go Jack Grealish as a differential. If you were to do it and want to put the armband on somebody who's obviously becoming and will become even more highly owned, then this looks as good a week as any to try and get that as a differential. Because if you look ahead, Newcastle at home in game week 11, obviously City have Fulham at home. When they play Burnley at home in game week 13, City have West Brom at home. Game week 14, they have West Brom away. You'd probably still go Liverpool got Palace, City got Southampton, Tottenham play Leicester, United play Leeds. There's a number of different alternatives. And when they play Palace in game week 15, City come back to Newcastle, and Liverpool have West Brom. So if you were trying to find a week to get an edge on Jack Grealish somehow, this is it. This is the best chance. There isn't going to be another one that comes around where you think, well, yeah, I want to go Jack Grealish captain. This is the one. So I don't hate it. I genuinely don't hate it at all. Bevan Rosario says, hi, James. Who should I bench, McGinn or Justin? Both look pretty good last game week and could have got an attacking return. So I'm not sure who's the better pick. I would definitely leave Justin out from that, mate. You got McGinn against Brighton, who McGinn loves a shot from range. Matt Ryan hasn't saved toffee so far this season. He's got the worst save percentage in the league. And Justin, listen, whatever you think of them, they're away to Liverpool. And they're going to play a defensive five, in my opinion, like they played at Manchester City in game week 3. So I think he'll have the brakes on tomorrow. So it'll definitely be a bench Justin. Chris Dunn says, hi, James. If on a wild card, which Liverpool assets would you be looking at? Or would it be a very usual case of 0 at the moment if I was on wild card Liverpool? I would definitely leave the money available for Salah. That's the first thing I would be doing. I'd be leaving $1 million or so in the bank. That's if I could give one bit of advice for wildcarders who are not going with Salah. That's it. Leave the money comfortably for Salah. I wouldn't even fear if you wanted someone, you went, oh, maybe ZX fixtures are turning next week, but I want him against Newcastle. If you want to leave that 3-4 million, people say, oh, you're mad. This is not mad. City got Tottenham this week. It's a difficult weekend. It's quite open. So, I mean, probably the more obvious one is go leave the money Bruno to Salah next week, because especially if Bruno blanks, you might feel like you want to move it back on. I would definitely have Nico Williams. It'd be the first one. I have already bought him. He's 3.9 million, and I have a fully strong bench. So if he becomes someone who's not going to play, he can sit third on my bench. I don't have the likes of Mitchells or Saises or other players like that who I would be worrying about at the moment. So definitely Nico Williams at 3.9 million. The risk with that is obviously you potentially block yourself further down the line on 3 Liverpool assets, and they have an amazing Christmas period. You need to be conscious of that. It's because of that, I would probably still go for Robertson, genuinely. And that's probably all I'd do at the moment, but I'd leave the money for Salah to make sure I'd get there. And then that would probably be my 3. I'm still not convinced on Jota, who obviously with Salah out is definitely going to start, you would think, against Leicester this week. I don't know what happens after that. I really don't. The Champions League group's wrapped up basically, got 3 wins out of 3, so they can rotate in that and go full strength in the league. I don't think any of us are too sure at the moment what that is system-wise. And I don't think, because the amount of players have got out and dance around people like Fabinho, Thiago, we don't really know what that's going to look like until all them midfield players are back fit, whether it is a 4-2-3-1 or whether it's 4-3-3. David Beaton says, afternoon, James. On one of your live streams before, we both agreed Scotland were underdogs versus Serbia, but had a chance. Delighted we were wrong. I heard they played very well. I also saw that they returned to norm, losing 1-0 in Slovakia and 1-0 in Israel, blowing what would have put them in a brilliant position for World Cup qualification for 2022. And not enough's been made of that, by the way. Yeah, look, they've got some decent players. You got like so Christian McGregor are good at Celtic. There's a few boys at Rangers. I think Ryan Kent maybe is coming on the scene now. What they definitely are, they're in the best position they've been in probably since they played in France '98, and obviously that's the last time they qualified for a major tournament. But Scotland have had a real issue for 15, 20 years of getting good young players come through. You're now looking at, we've got the issue of Tierney and Robertson both on the left side. By the time the tournament comes around, who can they get? Billy Gilmore in the team? McTominay's playing centre half for them at the moment because we've got a bit more depth in midfield. They still have issues up front in terms of Griffiths is probably never going to score enough goals. And Lyndon Dykes, who joined Queen's Park Rangers from Livingston this summer, he's probably another one. He's not going to get a load of goals, but he does give them a good outlet up front, which I think is good for them generally. They need a focal point. Scottish teams, since the likes of the great strikers they had like Joe Jordan, etc., I've always kind of needed that focal point up front. So, look, do I see them being a threat to England next summer? Not particularly. But if it's got a crowd there, that's definitely good news for Scotland because they'll have 15,000 at least in the ground. They'll make it like a cup semi-final atmosphere. It will be really good. And they'll obviously be so up for it. And they've got a chance in the group because one win might get you out the group, right? And obviously they play Croatia and Czech Republic both at Hampden Park. And those are the games they will particularly need the crowd for. They will probably, I suspect, have to beat Czech Republic to get out the group. But that might be enough. You can potentially get out a group because obviously 16 of 24 teams get out. If you're one of the 4 third best placed teams, you can potentially get out. So, yeah, look, I'm really pleased they got through. Genuinely, I say this a lot. Tournaments are always better when the home nations and the Republic of Ireland qualify. Much better. Would I rather watch Scotland or Serbia next summer? Oh, I'd rather watch Scotland. Thank you very much, genuinely. Gia says, hey, James, how's it going? Very good, thank you. Hope you're well too. He says, does your City contact know the crack with Jesus versus Aguero? Is comeback and match fit? Aguero is training. Is he match fit? I find that highly unlikely. Do I think he starts tomorrow? No, it would be a real surprise if Jesus didn't play up front, personally. Aguero, do you know what? What you want with Aguero to make this interesting is he plays in the Champions League in a week, plays 67 minutes and gets a couple, and then it'll be the usual, the midweek, oh my God! It's like people in the week, Foden scores twice for England. Foden's making it difficult for me to sell him. What, because he scored twice for England against 10-man Iceland in basically a friendly. That's now changed your mind. I never get that sort of thing. But something like that, Aguero being fit, and then you walk straight into that City run. And what about all those who perhaps been forced into holding on to Harry Kane this week because we've got other fires like Salah, etc. Kane to Aguero, game week 10. Maybe. Haven't ruled it out. Sonny says, what's the better option going forward? Double City mids or one City and Bruno? It's probably double City mids, but I'm going Bruno. He's probably going to block me off. I'm conscious I might move Bruno onto another City one when they play Fulham in game week 11. I'm probably going to have to -4 to get De Bruyne or Sterling next week. It's almost a certainty, unless actually Fernandes himself was to get injured, basically. Mohammed says, hi, James. What are the best, cheapest bench options going forward? Nico Williams is top boy, mate. 3.9 million. Imagine if that's the point. What if he plays and Liverpool run into them fixtures? And I realise Trent's not out for long. But what if Trent has a setback and suddenly he's out till January or something? You've got 3.9 million Liverpool defender with that amazing run of fixtures. As someone who hasn't used the wildcard, I've only got to worry about till game week 15. The start of Liverpool's runs game week 14. So that is just not that much of a big deal for me. Definitely Nico Williams. Kilman, I didn't mention in the team news, lost his father, unfortunately, bless him, earlier in the week. There was no word from Nuno Santo. It doesn't say anything about anything anymore. Touchwood, he'll be okay. Still a very good option, although Wolves obviously have a really tough run of fixtures. El Neni was showing his face as an interesting 4.4 million option. He's obviously out this week. with COVID. But if you're looking to go 3 up front, then I think El Nenny's probably going to be the standout 4.4, actually. You'd never pick him. You'd never start him. I still think Souček, 4.9. I will only be moving him on if I'm really shoving the funds and going to a power midfield 5. Otherwise, it's great. Sheffield United, as I said, has seen loads of aerial chances from crosses. He could genuinely have another return this week. Ulrich Close says, is Ziyech the move to make to gain an upside when most people are going to Bruno? I slept too long on Bruno last season when he exploded. Ziyech could be similar, especially in upside week. Is that what it is? Did Late Riser call it upside week on the wire or something, did he? I guess it is an upside week. Not for me. No, I feel like we've just missed the best of it. The thing is with Ziyech, look, he's undoubtedly a brilliant player, creativity-wise, etc. Set pieces, great. Definitely can offer you value at that price. We've just played Burnley and Sheffield United. That's what would be annoying me. Now they play Newcastle, and I think I've got it's obviously us next, Tottenham. Tottenham, Leeds, Everton, Wolves afterwards. It's not great. I'd feel like I've missed the best bits of it personally. Whereas I'd feel like, okay, missed Bruno at Everton, but was anybody massively expecting Bruno at Everton? I'm sure there were a handful of people who did captain him, but nearly everyone was on Son and Kane, weren't they? So no, I'd be thinking, 2 good fixtures. I said personally, I really like that Southampton fixture for Bruno in game week 10 personally. So no, I disagree. And Newcastle ain't going to give up too much space tomorrow. They never do. It also says, am I overthinking this? This will be instead of Salah. Yeah, Bruno for me, my friend. Just on Newcastle, some of you might have seen what I tweeted out early in the week, and I shared this with my advanced tier patrons last week. It's a few people have said it since as well, but Newcastle have conceded the most shots on goal, the most shots on target, the fewest big chances this season. Take that data and do whatever you want with it. Thank you for your kind comments. Static Darren Petterson says, hi, James, bench Watkins or Bamford, have Grealish. You need to find a different solution, mate. Simple as that. You need to find a different solution. Definitely can't be benching Watkins against Brighton, in my opinion. And I don't think you should bench Bamford against Arsenal. Of the two, it's bench Bamford. But you need to find a different solution. Why are those your 2 cheapest kind of attacking 8 players? Or have you got someone like Souček and you're desperate to play him? I'd pick both of those two over Souček, for example. Pup says, hi, James. Kept Trent so far. I'm thinking just holding through the injury. Am I crazy? Nothing's crazy. But I think it's too much value in a defender to be sitting on when we don't actually know how long he's out for at the moment. He might be back next week for all I know. But chop it off, mate. Cyrus says, I have to bench one of Reece James, Patrick Van Aanholt, Luca Dean, Cancelo, playing 3-4-3. Well, my advice would that be is I'd bench the one that I'm not sure is going to play. And I do think that Cancelo will play against Tottenham. But from that's probably the one to bench, isn't it? You're not going to have someone like PVA and then not play him against Burnley. Dean against Fulham? Nah. Reece James against... To be honest, it's leave Cancelo out. Tough one, though. Mohammed says, is there a chance Sterling won't start? Yes, there is a chance Sterling won't start. He only returned to training today. I think Mourinho was trying to play mind games with Guardiola earlier by saying he'll definitely start. I also expect Sterling to start, but I'm not Guardiola. Owen Morse, oi, James, given Chelsea's opposition, I said it right this week, mate. Is there any tactical scenario for Reece James to be left out this weekend? I'm threadbare at the back. Cheers, bud. Well, yeah, he decides he wants to play as Piliqueta, but I think I would use the Burnley and Sheffield United fixtures as a good gauge of what Chelsea want to do against Newcastle, which is get those 2 fullbacks really high up the pitch. So, like I said, I think you're looking at Abraham in the middle, and therefore balls coming in from the wide areas, and James and Chilwell off of that. I'd be really surprised if Reece James didn't play tomorrow. But as I've said on previous streams, you are going to run into this problem over and over again every week where it becomes a concern. I would definitely play Reece James if you own him. Hitman saying hello to everyone. Harry Redmond, just one big Q. Vardy and Rashford or Bruno and Werne. Sorry, it's confusing, but I wouldn't be bringing in Vardy till next week, whereas Werne would be part of a -8 this week. Thanks so much, boss. Not keen personally on bringing Timo Werner in. If you've got him, great, brilliant. If you even feel to use him as a captaincy option, no problem with that. Again, a little bit like with Ziyech, I'd feel I just missed the 2 best games. So, no, I'd do it as part of a -8. Not for me, my friend. Christopher Guinness, hello, mate. Good morning. If you had to take a guess, which team scores the most goals over the next 4 game weeks? Next 4. So that only gives City the Burnley and Fulham games with Tottenham and Manchester United away. Next 4 game weeks. That's a really good question. I'm eyeing up fixture tracker here. I'll throw a random out there. Everton. Hello, FPL Soccer Crazy. Praise says, hey, James, good afternoon. Do you think I should move Salah out for Bruno Fernandes and bench Son, or alternatively, I avoid the transfer and the hit and play Son? Have a great game week this week. Yeah, that's a rewind to what I said towards the start is what I'd advise there, Praise. I've already kind of covered that off. Tyrell says, bench Salah. You can tell all those who got to the stream late now, can't you? Bench Salah and bring in Jota for a 5 million midfielder and hope that Salah will be fit for game week 10. Question, I've already done the Salah bit. There's not a lot more I can add to it, guys. G Shet Third says, Bruno in this week to captain, then sell next week for KDB. We'll save a transfer and get KDB this week. Son is the player being sold. Kind of dilemma I'm in there, Gary. I'm going for Bruno. If you're intent in doing that and going Bruno now, non-captaincy, and definitely selling for KDB next week, then just go KDB now. Stephen O'Brien says, hi, James. Would you rather start Lamptey or Diaz? Probably Diaz, actually. Look, I predicted City to win 2-0. I ain't going to predict a Brighton clean sheet. Harry Redmond said, how do you think Tottenham will fare in these games coming up? Tactically in the big games, how do you think it will go? Man U wasn't the perfect representation. No, certainly shouldn't be. And neither should the Southampton game, actually. If we can get 4 points out of these 3 games, I'll take that, especially if the 3 points are against Arsenal. I'd probably take that. 5 or more would be a really good return. A really good return. So, I mean, look, that's what I'm hoping for. I think it's conceivable that we'll lose all 3 games, personally, which is a nightmare scenario. Suddenly we're going to be dropped down sort of 7th, 8th in the league, and you can forget your fucking title talk. I don't know. I think we'll get beat tomorrow. I think we'll probably narrowly get beat by Chelsea. At the moment, I would go into the Arsenal game quite confident. So if you're looking at it like that, 3 points maybe. Eulogio, is it a stupid idea to bring Sterling in for Salah? Pep's comments aren't conclusive, but I can just see him starting. Yeah, I can see Sterling starting as well. Ryan Stubbs, using one of my favourite words, madness, is a -12 utter madness with a wild card still in hand. Sitting pretty in all my mini leagues and think holding it as long as possible would hold me in good stead for the running. Okay. So can you do a -4 this week and a -4 next week, Ryan? Because that's kind of where I'm at. To get to the team I want at the moment, that's what I'd be doing right now, -12. Can you do a -4 this week and a -4 next week? Does that sound a little bit better? Jake Cow says, Werner to Vardy next week. Yeah, I can see people liking that sort of move. I'm very good. Thank you, Jake. Appreciate that. Michael says, do you expect Vardy will score 4 or more points higher than Kane this week? No. No, I spoke about this quite a lot on the Sky podcast we did, and I accept, obviously, a lot of you might not be playing the Sky game and that. But no, not particularly. I could see both players blanking, if I'm very honest. Atul says, Fernandes, Ziyech in, Salah, Son out for -4. Seems reasonable enough, my friend. Antonio says, hi, James. Hope you're well. If you own Salah, would you keep? We've kind of done this one. Ash, Cancelo or Diaz? I recommend yesterday's clash of the correspondence, mate. It depends what you want in an FPL defender. And Viru, who should I go for Dyer's replacement? 0.2 in the bank. Ooh. You're obviously going to want a playing replacement, probably. I would look at Konsa, possibly, of Aston Villa. Admittedly, you might be stocked up on Villa, so I understand that might not be a solution. I prefer Masuaku, personally, as the best West Ham option. I wouldn't even rule out, now we're here, to throw a name out there that not a lot to be mentioned at the moment, Ethan Ampadu of Sheffield United, 4.4 million. Next 2 fixtures, West Ham at home, West Brom away, are not bad. I don't know if you can get to Alex Telles. Looks like he may now get a run for Manchester United, and the timing could be great. Diagonal Records, love you, James. You're very welcome, mate. Going to wrap this up in a couple of minutes. So go through 4 more questions, guys. T. Robinson, that's a dodgy name to have in the stream, isn't it? James, which of Lamptey, Soufal, and Mitchell would you start this week? Well, I'll order them in preference, and that would be Soufal, Mitchell, Lamptey, but I don't think Mitchell will start. Pups, quick Sky question. Would you captain Ziyech or Grealish on Saturday? Grealish, mate, because of the ownership. Philip says, Jasim says chance of Mitchell starting. Just kind of covered that. Thank you very much, Jasim. Philip says, hi, James. Fellow Nico Williams owner here. Do you think he will, start either this game week or the next before TAA is back? Yeah, I think he's going to start, personally. I checked with Dan, FPL Loco Lord, our Liverpool correspondent. He thinks he'll probably play as well. It might be dependent on what they have at centre-back. So I think if Matip and Fabinho are available, I think Nico Williams plays. If they're forced into a situation where they have to play Reece Williams as well, they might want the experience of Milner on the outside. That's probably how I'd see it. But if you ask me, Nico Williams to start this game week, I'd say 65-70% would be my opinion. And we'll finish with 2 more. Ali Hewitt. Hi, James. Hope this hasn't been asked already. Do you think Ruben Diaz is worth a punt from game week 10? Very reasonable, mate. We think he's going to play the majority of the Manchester City games. Again, I'd recommend listening to COTC from yesterday. And Parashar says, how long is Salah out? Most likely, would you sell Salah or hold on to him? Rewind, guys. Covered this quite near the start. It'll be very repetitive. I'll just go over the whole Salah thing again. And the answer to clarify and end is, I don't know how long he's going to be out. And I don't think any of us really do. He could very conceivably back for game week 10. He could very conceivably not be. Very best of luck to everyone this game week. I have to stop it short because I've got another recording with Suj in a minute, literally, for our patrons. We've held off that for them this week so we could go through all the team news for them as well and go through our plans for the weekend. Obviously, if you want to support us on Patreon, I've seen some chat on Twitter over the last 24 hours or so, which is really amusing. Remember, if you sign up to Planet FPL Patreon, you ain't coming for advice. It's to support us in what we do with our content. And because I don't have a job, this is it. Much love, guys. Have a good weekend. Hope your arrows are green. We'll be back with full content next week. 5 podcasts, Monday through to Friday, includes Clash of Correspondence with FIFPL Addict and Adam Hotcroft, West Ham versus Villa next Thursday. 5 pods for patrons as well next week. Be safe, everyone. Be nice to each other. Hope your arrows are green. And for the benefit of those listening on the audio, cue music, please, match up.